So if you're doing these multi-key center tasks, in other words, you're changing key 4 or 5 times in 32 bars, you're liable to be going into a nasty key. You're liable to be going into B or F sharp or E or A or something you're just not comfortable with, and you think, okay, what am I doing here? Well, whenever you're taking a solo, what you cannot do is turn around to the band and say, whoa, stop! This is a difficult bit here, so we're going to slow this bit down really slow and then accelerate again. No, you can't do that. You have to be able to play it at the speed. So if you can't play your major scales at 150 beats per minute in all 12 keys, then you can't take a solo at 150 beats per minute that's liable to visit some of those keys. So practicing the scales is really, really important. Now at my age now, when I'm still studying, doing this studying post-PhD, I'm looking at much more advanced concepts. I'm looking at things like developing patterns that allow me to play the 11 over a minor, which is my favourite interval in the world. So I create patterns that allow me to play that, and I test them out on the off beat or the on beat, or I resolve rhythmically. I just design patterns that are made up of groups of quavers or semi-quavers that don't finish until they get to the downbeat, which is like a crotchet or whatever happens to be, and that's usually a chord tone. So I'm developing things like that, and again on that downbeat I'm thinking about how I would encapsulate that or encase that downbeat, in other words make it even stronger by setting up a downbeat. So one of the techniques that they have in jazz is to encapsulate a chord tone. So let's say the chord of the bar, or bar 2, is a C7. Well, the chord tones are C, E, G and B flat, and let's say I play the B flat as on the downbeat on a strong accented crotchet in bar 2 on that C7. That's the flat 7 of that C7. Then I would encapsulate that from a half a tone below, which would be the A, or probably a quaver again, or a semi-quaver or whatever, to a half a tone or a tone above, which would be in the key, which would probably be, let's say, the C. So I'd have A, C, B flat, and that would be, the A, C would be on the 2 quaver beats, or approach notes as we call them, approaching the downbeat on beat 2. So you'd be encapsulating the root. So I practice that at speed, and there's a whole stack of different devices I would do. I would work on traits that I would use, like I would superimpose blues scale material over major and minor chord patterns. I'd anticipate the harmony. So if I saw groups of chords, and let's say there was 2 chords per bar for 8 bars, some of those chords might belong to a key center. You might have a 2-5 or 2-5-1 in D. You might have 3 or 4 chords in the key of D. Well, I would think of that harmonic change as significant, and I might choose to anticipate that harmony by leaving the harmony that I'm in, even though the rhythm section are playing that harmony, and anticipating or approaching the downbeat of that new harmony, the downbeat 1 of that new harmony, with the vocab from that harmony. So let's say I have 2 bars of G minor, I might play those 2 bars of G minor, I might play a line for the first 6 beats of those 2 bars, take a quaver rest, and then the next 3 quavers, which are the last 3 quavers of bar 2, I might use the vocabulary from the D major, which is the next bar, so that it becomes part of that phrase. So there's a whole stack of different techniques. There's also articulations: soft tone, hard tone, do, to, vu, fu, so I can demonstrate using your horn.
Yeah, no problem.
So hard tonguing, like soft tongue. Slurring. A mixture of 2. Then you've got scoops and bends. You've got after tongue things where you're reversing the position of the tongue from the start of the note to the end of the note. So you're doing really, really good because most people are expecting you to read accent, staccato, legato or whatever, but you're now developing a range or a vocabulary of your own articulations which you can use when they're appropriate. You know, some of them, sometimes hard tongue isn't appropriate for ballads or for certain pop songs, whatever happens to be, sometimes it is. So you're looking at introducing those kind of articulations. Well, that's a whole language of itself. So those are things I'm practicing all the time, as well as obviously range techniques, you know, so. So you're building that up every time, pushing it up a third, pushing up a third, pushing up a third, and then starting a half a tone down and building that up. So you've all those things to think about if you're a trumpet player, and once you take your foot off the gas and you stop practicing them, they let you down. You just leave this back.
Yeah. The next question that I have here is sort of, you've kind of touched on it already, but what trumpeting techniques would you use maybe in different genres of music, or what sort of genres have you played?
Well, I've played so many. I've played jazz. I've played everything. It's not. I mean, I've done reading gigs, but it's not my thing. I just the idea of sitting in a pit in an auditorium in a theatre for 3.5 weeks doing a pantomime, whatever, twice a day would just make me completely sick. I like to get a variety in my playing, but I do play brass band, which means I have to have the discipline of sitting in sections, and I have to soften my tongue. I have to use a lot of vibrato. I have to reduce my dynamic range because my dynamic range is very high, and my double 40 is probably your 5 Fs. You know what I mean? It's like I'm quite loud whenever I want to be, and I'm also quite soft whenever I want to be. So you're having to limit your dynamic range by being in that brass band, because my MF for 40 would be their double 40, so you're having to restrict that. So I find it very disciplined. You're sitting with the conductor and you're listening for intonation and pitch practices, and sometimes those brass bands, they have weaknesses in that direction. So you're having to be true to yourself and be sure what your own pitch is, and maybe have to adjust to compromise. So that's a really good thing to practice. I've done the commitments. I've worked in Van Morrison's band, Paul Brady's band, so you're writing your own brass parts for pop sections, for pop lines. You're working with sections, maybe 2 saxes, trombone, maybe trumpet sax, and you have all kinds of different things. The big thing is, for most of the gigs that I do, you have to be able to improvise, and there's 2 types of improvisation. There's multi-key center, which is the jazz one we're talking about, where you're liable to be switching key center every 4 bars in a jazz standard, or single key center, where you have a totally different requirement altogether, where you're trying to use notes that are significantly common within the scale. Like the chords of those tunes are normally based around the 1-4-5, so they're obviously looking for you to play dominant chord tones and lines. You're looking to either play unison, pad, support, or long note support under a singer's moving line, or you're looking to punctuate a singer's rest or sustained movement with a moving line. So you have to be quite accurate. You have to have a very quick ability to play fast and accurate without splitting notes, and that's quite a big part of a lot of the stuff that I do. So being an accurate reader, having a very strong range, having a very accurate tongue, having very, very good pitch and tuning, personal tuning, and being able to improvise in all 12 keys of speed are the things that I find I most require whenever I'm playing.
Okay. Is there any genre of music that you feel doesn't work for trumpeters, or is there any genres that you feel are more difficult? If so, do you know any good techniques to try and learn how to play them?
I think it's really funny. I'm going to answer this really controversially.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, whenever you're 18, 19, you should still be thinking about identifying weaknesses that maybe don't affect you, and where you're playing, and trying to fix them, and trying to maybe approach those subjects so you get good at them. But the older you get, you realise that the only way to actually make a career is to specialise in being a jack of all trades, and not really very good at any of them. It doesn't get you any work, because people are always looking for the best players in rock and pop, in a section, in a pit, in a jazz situation. backing singers, being able to write your own brass parts. You need to have all those things, and you need to specialise, and you need to, because once you get a name for being a great brass section leader and writer and being on a lot of records, then that's where you're going to make your money. People are going to come back to you for that. So there's nothing that I can really hear that trumpet's not going to work in, because if you think about the role of trumpet as a solo instrument, and you think of the fact that you're going to use mutes and you can use electronic devices on microphones to give it a sound and a pitch and all those different things, then I actually don't think that there's anything that can't be done. In addition to that, as well as being a solo instrument, it can be a section instrument where it's actually in harmony with maybe a saxophone or a trombone or a second trumpet or even a string pad. That's going to work in Irish traditional and country music as well. So I've played all those genres. I can't think of anything that wouldn't work in.
As one of the leading jazz trumpeters in Ireland, do you feel that jazz is the major scene for trumpeters looking in Ireland for work, or do you think there's other genres or styles that are more popular?
I can think of about 7 jazz trumpet players in the whole of Ireland who are full-time. Not big career prospects. 1 or 2 normally dominate, and you normally dominate by getting your own work, not necessarily by being better than anybody else. So I would significantly say jazz is one aspect. What I would say is the better you are at jazz, the more likely you are to be able to do anything else. If you're a really good jazz player, you can read, you can improvise, you can play in different keys, you can make up your own parts, you can write your own parts, you can work out your own parts, you can respond by ear to the environment that's been created by the rhythm section. But you can do that in anything. You can do that in pop, you can do that in rock. So if you can do it in jazz, you can do it elsewhere. But I would say for any player like you who wants to make a career out of trumpet, have a facility for jazz, be able to play Dixieland, be able to try mainstream, be able to try modern, and go and catch the culture of really good players who are out there. Currently, in 2014, there are 85 jazz gigs a month in Belfast. So if you want to limit your earning capacity, then don't play jazz. The beautiful thing about jazz is it's quite a popular thing on a Sunday night, on a Sunday lunchtime, on a Monday night, on a Wednesday night, on a Thursday tea time, on a Saturday afternoon, whenever rock bands and weddings aren't taking place. So you can actually top up your income by being a jazz musician on off days. So I think it's a really, really good thing. But no, I mean, as I say, I'm on 108 albums and only about 9 of them are jazz. So obviously I get a lot of income from other aspects of playing. So don't narrow down, but you need to think of setting yourself a date or an age whenever you become the specialist for 1 or 2 styles of music, and you want to start picking what those are going to be now, because by the time you're 25 you want to be developing a name for being a section player for pop, a orchestral player, a jazz musician, whatever happens to be. Most people who follow a career in performance, most people, not me, but most people that follow a career in performance go to music college. So if you were thinking of finishing this course and going and doing a degree in Queen's or Jordanstown, that would almost guarantee that your income would not be from playing by the time you're 25 or 26. But if you went to music college like Trinity or the Royal Academy or New Park in Dublin or whatever happens to be, where everything is geared towards improving your playing ability, then the likelihood is that you would be a professional player by the time you're 25 or 26. Those are decisions you've got to make, but you've got to also be honest about how good you are. I don't know any full-time players who are my age or even in their mid-30s that I know really well that haven't gone through a period of 3 or 4 or 5 years of 6 hours a day practice. I can't think of any who are successful full-time players who haven't done that, including me.